All right, guys. We are live with another one, guys. Okay, we are live with another one. The mic is hot, guys. You already know what this is. Okay, this is OE MMA TV. I'm your host, OE. Like and subscribe if you are new to the channel. It takes minimal effort to give me the thumbs up, so you know what? You might as well do it. Thank you for supporting independent MMA media, guys. And like I always say, this is your channel, the only channel where the fans come first, not last. All right, guys. We're gonna have to just jump right into this, guys. Okay, because as it stands right now, the UFC is in trouble, guys. Okay, that's facts. Not only are they in trouble, guys. Okay, but this is not the past where the UFC can actually buy out their competitors. They're not buying out Netflix, guys. They're not buying out ESPN, guys. They're not buying out ONE FC, guys. And that is facts, guys. This is a different era that we have moved into as of late. Right now, guys, I mean, I'm not the only one screaming on top of the mountains that the UFC has under delivered, especially as of recent in 2026 with this new Paramount deal. It leaves a bad taste in your mouth, especially if you're a true fan of mixed martial arts and the UFC, guys. Unfortunately, we're going to break this down, okay? Because right now, Netflix is swinging for the fences, guys. Not only are they swinging for the fences, but we got Ronda Rousey over here trying to take Sean Shelby and Mick Maynard's job. Because as it stands right now, guys, Mike Perry and Nate Diaz are on this Netflix bout. And look, guys, the UFC, they really are in trouble right now. In my opinion, they are in trouble because look, let me tell you something. Netflix is doing something that no other platform is doing right now. Okay, and they're putting on some good fights. They're putting on some fun fights, some interesting fights, some sellable fights. Okay, when you have Mike Perry and Nate Diaz on a card, you can actually sell that fight as a true BMF title belt. Those are two bad motherfuckers right there, especially Mike Perry. I mean, look at him. He went to bare knuckle fighting and found success in the most brutal sport when it comes to combat sports in general, guys. And that's facts. Okay, guys, like and subscribe if you are new to the channel. Okay, it takes minimal effort to give me the thumbs up, so you know what, you might as well do it, guys. Okay, all right. But let me tell you something. When it comes to the UFC, they are they are in massive trouble. This is not the past where the UFC can actually buy out the competitors. Like I said before, and I'll say it again, the UFC is definitely not buying out Netflix, nor are they buying out ESPN or ONE FC for that matter. Okay, and that's facts. So the UFC right now are thinking, well, we have a huge issue on our hands, and that is true. That is true because as I'm looking at the landscape and I'm looking at Netflix, and I'm looking at Netflix and what they're doing and what their movement. I mean, putting Nate Diaz and Mike Perry on this Netflix bout with Ronda Rousey and Francis Ngannou on the same card. That's a sellable fight. That sounds like a fun night of fights, in my opinion. Okay, and you could, like I said before, you could actually sell that fight, Mike Perry versus Nate Diaz. You can sell that fight as the true BMF title, and that's exactly what they're doing. Back in the day, the UFC was considered the best organization known to man when it came to mixed martial arts. But in general, guys, they really weren't the best. I mean, if you look at the landscape, I said it in one of my last past lives, guys. The UFC bought out WEC, and not only did they buy out WEC, but they bought out Pride FC. They bought out Pride as well. I mean, they bought out numerous organizations to be able to just basically take their their fighters and implement them into the UFC roster. That's basically what the UFC has done. But unfortunately, things have changed. Okay, things have changed, and I'm not the only one that actually thinks the UFC is in trouble. I mean, guys, look at how 2026 this quarter, this first quarter, has gone for the UFC. I mean, yeah, viewership is supposedly up, but I mean, according to the fans, and I'm a true fan, from a fan perspective, guys, the UFC is lacking. They're under delivering. There's facts. But here we go. I'm going to put on Brendan Schaub here. I'm not really a true fan of Brendan Schaub, but sometimes, Mr. Thickboy has some, good things to say, actually. So let's listen to him really fast because you know what? He makes some strong points as to why the UFC right now is lacking. Okay, let's listen to this.
I think with the White House card, that's taken all the attention in the UFC. So I would say I'm not willing to beat the UFC up yet about the Paramount deal. It's been a rough kind of takeoff. It's been pretty weak, but 327 gives me hope.
UFC 327 does give me hope as well. Okay, let's look at that card right now. All right, let's look at that card right now. Hold on a second. Let's look at this card right now for what it is. UFC 327. Hold on a second. I mean, you do got two numbered cards back to back that are really, really fun. Like I said, yeah, UFC 327 does give you hope, and UFC 328 does give you hope as well. Like I said, UFC 327 does have Jerry Prohaska and Carlos Oberg. You do have Joshua Van versus Tatsu Tara. You got Johnny Walker, Dominic Cruz. So there's some very, very fun fights on this card. UFC 327 in Miami does sound very entertaining. But guys, we've seen crazier things happen. So I'm just hoping UFC 327 actually stays intact. Okay? Because when it comes to the UFC and mixed martial arts in general, a lot of these guys start falling out. A lot of these guys start acting flaky, start missing weight. Some of them get injured. Some of them slip on a fucking banana peel. Guys, a lot of things can happen. So hopefully UFC 327 does stay intact, okay? But Brendan Schaub is right. Okay, the White House card sucks. I'm sorry, guys. The White House card is awful. Nobody's interested in seeing Justin Gaethje versus Ilya Topuria, and I am screaming that on top of the hills, guys. Who's interested in seeing that crap? I'm definitely not. I mean, Charles Oliveira is more, like he's more deserving to fight for the title than Justin Gaethje, in my opinion. And look at what's happening with Armin Sarukian. I know Armin Sarukian has some breaking news that he will be fighting soon, and he has a booking fight. But look, I digress, guys. Armin Sarukian should definitely fight for the belt. He should have fought for the belt before Charles Oliveira did, and that's facts. Okay, and that's facts. It's pretty much, you know, I don't know. It's pretty much a shit show when it comes to the UFC right now. It's a shit show. Dana White is not in charge. I don't know who's, the person who's in charge of the bottom line in the decision making when it comes to, putting these cards together. Because a lot of these cards have been trash. Have been trash, guys. We haven't really gotten a real title contention fight yet in 2026, guys. And that's facts. I mean, yeah, you can. I mean, Alex Volkanovski. I understand Alexander Volkanovski. That's you can call that a true title fight. But guys, we already saw that fight. And the second fight around, it looked very similar to where they left off in the first fight, guys. Okay. There's also, some things that we also need to talk about today, and the reason why a lot of these journalists and YouTubers are on the same page when it comes to the UFC and fighter pay and how the UFC is actually moving forward with their business and conducting business, especially with this new Paramount deal. I mean, guys, a lot of these guys, they're getting paid pennies. And now we have Ronda Rousey actually, out there, going on a media tour talking about how awful the UFC is and how their blueprint for moving forward since the UFC and Paramount have, merged is just awful for the fighters. So very interesting, very interesting. But there's a good documentary here. It's called "The Shady Business Behind the UFC." Okay, and it's Luke Thomas, a very known journalist, respectable journalist up when it comes to this MMA communities. But I did want to bring this up just because a lot of this I'm going to bring up this short part in this documentary just because I think it's important, especially for the topic that we're talking about in right now in hand. We're talking about the UFC, we're talking about fighter pay, we're talking about how awful the UFC is, to deal with, especially right now with this new Paramount deal. I mean, like I said, Ronda Rousey is out here going on a media tour, letting everybody know how the UFC conducts business now that Dana White is not basically at the head. Okay, and a lot of other people actually are in agreement that the UFC is atrocious and it hasn't really been entertaining. So let's listen to this documentary really, really fast. It's really interesting. I'm going to play a little bit of it, and we'll talk about what they say and break it down really fast. Hold on. During fights and promotions. Reebok has stepped up. These guys are spending a lot of money. We're giving every dime of the money that's coming in to the athletes. But you took 80% of our sponsorship dollars. That's food off our kids' table, food out of our kids' mouths. And since fighters are classified as independent contractors, they also don't get company benefits. Peter, Alex, your pads. That means no comprehensive health insurance, no pension, no collective bargaining rights, but they signed the contract with dreams of reaching the top. I wanted to stop it there, man. I wanted to stop it there because I'm just being honest with you. That's a topic that I always bring up. I always bring that up. You know what I mean? If you're a mixed martial arts fighter and you have dreams and admiration to become a champion, and you want to fight at the best organization, so called the UFC, because I mean that's the way they sell it. They sell it as if the UFC is the only organization and respectable organization out there right now, right? And you want to become a champion, man. That's tough, man. That's a tough task, especially the way things are dealt. The UFC now is a business, and they definitely are looking for their bottom dollar. And I've always brought up the fact that if you are a mixed martial arts fighter, you're gonna have to, it's very expensive. It's very expensive to become a mixed martial arts fighter. I mean, you gotta hope that you don't get hurt, and you don't get a critical injury during your path, on your way to, making some serious money in your career being a mixed martial arts fighter. I mean, you're going to see now, they're going to talk about it more specifically, but guys, you're one injury away from your career ending, okay? And you never fighting again. Or you're one injury away from being a quadriplegic because we're seeing that happen before. Okay, and that's facts. Mixed martial arts is a scary business. It's a scary sport. It's not something you should play with, especially if you want to become a mixed martial arts champion. It's not something you should play with. It's something you should take very serious because it's a serious sport. You don't play fight. All right, and that's facts. And now with everything the way it is, the way the UFC conducts business, the way Paramount now is into this whole entertainment aspect of things. I mean, you got to look at the landscape of things, and the way things are looking is not looking like it's going to benefit the fighters at all for the foreseeable future. At all. So the fighters are looking to, get better fighter pay or get insurance or whatever it is that betters them as fighters and independent contractors fighting for the UFC. They could kiss that goodbye. That's facts. But let's continue listening to this documentary. This phenomenal documentary is called "The Shady Business Behind the UFC." Luke Thomas is actually a part of this. So let's listen to some more things and break down what they actually say.
And if a fighter gets injured or is unable to compete, the UFC can pause their contract, locking them in for even longer. This is exactly what happened to Cajun. Finally into the UFC. It's taken like 13 years for me to get here, and then back.
Guys, can you imagine that? I want to pause it right there. Can you imagine that, being a mixed martial arts fighter and just prioritizing mixed martial arts as a career, right? And you're on a 13-year journey, and you would think after 13 years you made some serious money, but most likely he hasn't. He hasn't made some serious money, being a mixed martial arts fighter. And now he's in the UFC, and his first fight, he's most likely getting. I mean, it says it later, but I think he was getting paid eight to show, eight to win. So overall, you're getting paid $16,000. But can you imagine if you get an injury after that fight, and that $16,000, you could kiss goodbye. That's facts. You're gonna find yourself in debt. But anyways, that's something that I always bring up, and it's very important, uh, especially when you look at the landscape with, like I said, how the UFC is conducting their business. Let's move forward.
Bang, one shot, all of that went down the drain. In his first UFC fight, Cajun was knocked out and had his jaw broken in 3 places. Yeah, like, your jaw's painful. Yeah. Oh. Traumatic brain injury is nothing to shake a stick at. For me to get back to training, it was very difficult. So I'm not able to fight. They hit pause on the contract. And if you're not fighting, you're not getting paid.
That's facts, guys. If you're not fighting, you're not getting paid. It's not like you have a contract with the UFC and that contract is guaranteed. It's just it isn't. You got to be fighting to get that money, and you got to be winning to get that money as well. Because if you're losing, you're not going to be getting paid what you should be getting paid. Okay, and most likely you're not getting paid what you should be getting paid in general, and that's facts. Okay, now going back to this whole Netflix debacle with Ronda Rousey going on this whole media tour, and basically, now everybody knowing how the UFC is being ran, you know, it leaves a question to really, it leaves a question out there in the air. With this new Paramount deal and the UFC, is this the worst thing that could have happened to the UFC? I'm not sure, guys. I mean, right now, it's not a good look. It's not a good look. When you got me agreeing with Brendan Schaub, it's not a good look, because I actually agree with Brendan Schaub with what he's saying. He actually said in the beginning of this live, he said that the UFC definitely underdelivered, but the only thing that's giving him hope is UFC 327, and that's exactly how I'm feeling right now. Because of the rest of the cards, I mean, these UFC fight nights are atrocious, atrocious, guys. I mean, did you watch the last heavyweight fight that just happened this Saturday? Atrocious, guys. It reminds me of how awful, god awful, the heavyweight division is. And guys, the heavyweight division is not only the only division that's god awful. Okay, excuse me, and that's facts. The women's bantamweight division, awful, guys, awful. Okay, the women's flyweight division, awful, awful, guys. And the women's strawweight division, awful. There's not a lot of prospects in those divisions. I mean, if you look at those girls who up and comers, I mean, those girls are fighting like Royce Gracie in 1993. Like it's unbelievable. You would think these females would evolve, over time, but I mean, it's not looking that way, guys. It's just not looking that way. Okay, and it's almost as if the talent, when it comes to the females, at least, I don't mean to disrespect the females, but it seems as if the female talent has gone fucking backwards. Like, what's going on? And the heavyweight division, guys, it's always been a debacle. Okay, the heavyweight division always is. It's like a roller coaster. It's up and down every single 5 years. Okay, and that's facts. But let's continue with this documentary here. That's phenomenal. Okay, let's continue breaking this down here, because this is great. This is some great material here.
Contracts don't work like this in any other major sport.
So then that leads to situations where guys know that they're injured but will fight anyway.
You know, I want to stop it right there. You know, I mean, I know a lot of guys that fight when they were injured. I know a lot of guys that competed injured. That would happen all the time. All the time. Whether you had a broken rib, two broken ribs, a sprained ankle, a broken finger, a sprained finger, a sprained back, whatever it might be. I mean, you're never going to go into a fight 100%. And if you do go into a fight 100%, I mean, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Okay, but I mean, these days is really hard. I mean, the only people that are actually going into a fight 100% usually most of the time is these athletes who are high level, right? Because they got the steroids and the doctors to really push them over the edge. But let's continue. Let's continue. I digress.
Dana White's MO is to pay the fighters as little as possible in order to make them willing to fight whoever, whenever, right? Because they're starving, they need to get paid.
Remember when we said the UFC made $1.4 billion last year? Well, fighters see roughly 17% of that. By comparison, NFL players are guaranteed nearly half of league revenue by their collective bargaining agreement.
I think they should get paid more. I know how fucking dangerous that shit is. You should get paid an incredibly generous amount of money to.
You know, I think the fighters shot themselves in the foot. In my opinion, I think the fighters shot themselves in the foot, and I think it's their fault. When they had a chance to make a big difference with the collective bargaining agreement, they had a chance in court, and what did the fighters do? They settled. Now, I understand they had chances to lose everything and get nothing. But, guys, that's the chance that you take. You fucking swing for the fences, okay? Especially if you got the amount of evidence that you have that can actually open the door, okay, to these fighters actually getting paid better. But you know what? Honestly, I think the reason why a lot of these fighters ended up, you know, I think a lot of, I think there was a consensus between the old fighters, and they said, you know what? If we have the FBI, the CIA, all these people investigating, you know, in the government, you know, going into the UFC and going into the business practices of mixed martial arts, I think they would have found some nasty, shady business going on when it came to the, you know, everything. You know, I'm not only talking about the UFC. I'm talking about mixed martial arts in general. Okay, especially we're talking about back in the '90s, guys, when you know you couldn't even watch mixed martial arts on live television. You couldn't even order it on pay per view. As Dana White said, you could order, you know, porn back then, but you couldn't even order, you know what I mean, a UFC fight. So imagine that, guys. Imagine what the FBI and the government would have found if they would have really delved in and found themselves looking into the fine details of business practices when it comes to the UFC and mixed martial arts in general. How you doing, GTA Shorts? Welcome back to your channel and welcome back to your chat, guys. This is a serious matter right now, a serious, really, a serious situation right now because we have Netflix swinging for the fences right now, guys, and Ronda Rousey is out here, you know, just going on a media tour, just breaking down the UFC, literally breaking them down. She tweeted earlier that she's plans to take Mick Maynard's job. And look, let me tell you something. Putting Nate Diaz and Mike Perry on that Netflix card makes things everything like it makes that card even more fun, especially from a viewership perspective, especially from a fan's perspective. It's going to be like a fun card. I know for a fact, if I'm not doing anything, and let's say I'm not even a UFC fan or a mixed martial arts fan in general, right? But I find myself at home, I'm putting on Netflix and I'm watching that fight. Something is going to happen. Francis Ngannou is going to take somebody's heads off, okay? straight clean off their shoulders. All right, and that head of his opponents is probably going to land on somebody's lap. Okay, Ronda Rousey might find herself in trouble getting knocked the fuck out by Gina Carano, guys, and the world might go crazy for that. You all saw how the world went crazy the first time, when Holly Holmes landed that crazy head kick that sent, Ronda Rousey spiraling. Literally. We might see Gina Carano put a 5-punch combination and put Ronda Rousey away. And now we got Nate Diaz versus Mike Perry. That sounds like a hell of a fight. You can definitely sell that fight as a BMF title fight. Because nobody is going for a takedown. Nobody. Okay? That's facts. Mars. How you doing, Mars? Like and subscribe, guys. Run up these likes and run up these subscriptions. Mars, welcome back to your channel. And welcome back to your chat, guys. I mean, you let me know in the chat, guys. I will be giving my UFC fight predictions, for this card. Headlined by Evlov. Okay. Not very entertaining fighter, but I feel like it's gonna be he's gonna show out. Okay, he's gonna show out. I think he's gonna utilize that wrestling, take his opponent down, and get that dub. But anyways, that's another conversation. Okay, I will be giving my UFC fight predictions most likely tomorrow. All right, for this card, I'm not going to spend too much time on the fine details on why I think this person is going to win or why that person is going to lose. I'm just going to tell you who's going to win, why I think they're going to win, and a little bit of details about their opponent, okay? And that's facts, guys. That's all I'm going to do. Because I'm spending a little bit too much time with these UFC fight predictions, especially with these UFC Fight Night predictions. I mean, these cards are trash. Trash. But I digress, guys. I digress. But you know what? The true issue here is, in my opinion, okay, I think the true issue at hand is not only that the UFC no longer has, a leader like Dana White who's completely interested in indulged in the business, but we also got to talk about the gambling situation. You saw what happened with Armin. Jason 9. How you doing, Jason 9? Welcome back to your channel and welcome back to your chat. Jason 9, what happened with Armin Sarukian? I understand he has a fight booked. Okay. There hasn't been any breaking news about it. I haven't been told, who's he fighting or anything like that. But I know he has a fight booked and I know they're gonna tell us soon. But besides that, what happened with Armin? Let me know, Jason 9. Let me know in the chat what happened with Armin Sarukian. But guys, going back to what I was saying, we have to talk about this betting situation. I think a lot of these fighters are actually smartening up. And I think there's a bigger situation at hand, okay? I think there's a bigger situation at hand, and I think this is a money grab situation as well. I think everybody is looking to get paid, and I think everybody is in it. I think everybody's into it and in it as well. Okay? Because there's been just too many situations when you look at the betting odds. You look at the betting odds, and there's been so many fights that I've looked at that you look at them and they're like they're just super shady. The Drew Doper Michael Johnson fight, that was a shady fight, guys. Okay, because in the beginning of the week, Michael Johnson was favored to win that fight. Okay, he was favored to win that fight. And then all of a sudden, towards the fight, when the fight started, all of a sudden, he was favored to lose. But it didn't say how. So I guess if you betted that Drew Doper knocked him out in the first round, you would have won a lot of money. And you're right, Black Arrow. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Black Arrow. Don't bet. it's true. It's absolutely true. But it's not about people betting. I don't think that's not the problem here that I'm saying. What I'm saying is the legitimacy of the sport is kind of gone because these fighters are smartening up and they can actually have a team of betters and they can actually win more money than what the contract that that they have with the UFC. Let's say a fighter is getting paid 8-8. Okay, let's say a fighter is getting paid 8-8. They're on their second fight. They're on a 8-fight contract with the UFC. So you're going to be getting paid 8-8 for the next 2 or 3 years, unless you go through those 8 fights fairly quickly, right? So you got to hope that you don't get injured during that contract and during that 8 fight you know journey. So let's say you're getting paid 8-8, and the betting odds. Let's say the betting odds are you're gonna lose or you're gonna win, and if you win, you know you get this much money. If you lose, you get this much money. So like these fighters are really looking at the fine details of things, and they're figuring out that 8-8 doesn't feed my family. It doesn't give me longevity when it comes to my bank account. So they're looking at ways to actually get creative to make money and to make serious money. Because I'll tell you what, guys, a lot of these fighters are making serious money. A lot of them, especially when it comes to the betting odds. Jason Nine says, "Nah, the JoJo wrestling match, Armin was crashing out." Oh yeah, I did see that, Jason Nine. I did see when Armin Sarukian did crash out. There was there was some violence going on, but that's what happens. You know what I mean? It's a physical sport. Wrestling is a physical sport, and sometimes things like that go on. All right, Jason Nine says, "Can't blame them." And you know what, Jason Nine, I can't. I'm just being honest with you. I can't blame any one of those fighters, especially with how things are going with the fighters. I guess you got to get creative to make some money, especially in this new way the UFC is conducting business. And like I said, a lot of these fighters are smartening up, and I honestly want to say, if you put a percentage on it, guys, I'm being real, guys. If you put a percentage on it, I want to say like maybe 70% of these fighters. I'm being real, guys. I'm being real. I think 70% of these fighters, or even more. Okay, but if I had to put a number on it from the top of my head, I think probably 70% of these fighters are gambling, and they're gambling on their odds. You could just look at a lot of these guys. Like if you look at Michael Johnson's career, just look at his career. His career is like weird. Like he will beat one dude who's super super high level, and then he will lose to like a mediocre dude. Like it's some weird shit. You know what I mean? And I honestly don't think it's about a lot. In my opinion, it's not for a lot of these fighters. It's not about becoming champion. It's about getting the most money that you can, especially out of a dangerous sport. And if you can do it in a creative way, you could come out of here with a lot of money. And let me tell you something: that Jew Doper and Michael Johnson fight, you got a lot of money if you said Jew Doper, knocks out Michael Johnson in the first round. Mars says he also gave Khabib a tough fight. Mars, my point exactly. You know what I mean? My point exactly. Michael Johnson, and then look at this. Look at like he go. That's Mars. That's exactly what I'm talking about. He goes out there and he gives Khabib a tough fight, but then he loses against Nate Diaz. Like, how the fuck does that make sense? You get what I'm saying? Like, his career has been up and down, and it makes you question like what's going on here. And then, honestly, if I had to look at his career, I think it's because of the betting odds. I think he goes out there and he tries to make as much money as he can, and I don't blame him. And you know what, guys? I honestly think this is such a big scandal that the FBI actually intervened and started investigating the UFC to the point where the UFC was so out of control with the betting scandal that the FBI was like, everybody's betting basically. So for a fact the UFC and the FBI had to come to an agreement So most likely, with every betting odd for every dollar, they probably make 10 cents for every bet for letting things go on cleanly, uninterrupted. That's most likely what's going on right now. Okay, I mean, there's a broader picture here, guys. I mean, look at what happened, guys. Who was it? It was like 6 years ago, maybe. Yeah, I think it was like 6 or 5 years ago. Was when the first betting scandal happened. Okay, and it was huge. It was a coach. He had his whole team that was involved, and yet nobody has went to jail yet. Nobody from that gym or the coach, nobody has gone to jail. The only thing that has happened is that main coach has disassociated himself from the gym. That gym is still operating. They call themselves under a new business LLC, but everything is running the same, the same. But the only difference is obviously you don't have that coach in there who was in the scandal, in this situation, but nobody's in jail. Nobody has gone to prison, which tells me they got an agreement. Mars says, and it's easy to get away with. It definitely is, guys. It definitely is, especially in today's age. It definitely is, guys. You kidding me right now? And guys, I'm just being honest with you. I'm being real with you. Look at Charles Oliveira, right? Let's say Charles Oliveira betted on himself, right? Let's say Charles Oliveira betted on himself because he was the underdog against Max Holloway. So it would make sense for Charles Oliveira to put some money down on himself, and guess what? That wouldn't be illegal. That would be completely legal because he's betting on himself, right? But now, guys, look, for a guy like Charles Oliveira to know how to bet on himself, guys, he could make in one night. He will make so much money beyond what the UFC could ever give him. Okay, the guy could bet a double. He could bet a 3-4 parlays if he wanted to. He could bet in the first round. Charles Oliveira will get 4 takedowns. Okay, and he'll probably put 100 grand on that. Okay, and then he'll probably put another 100 grand on Charles Oliveira winning, and another 100 grand on Charles Oliveira winning by submission. Guys, there'll be so much money that Charles Oliveira would have made that night if he would have betted on himself, and most likely he probably did, because he knew for a fact that he was going to beat Max Holloway and in that fashion. Okay, and that's facts. Right now, the UFC has issues, big, big issues, guys. They really do. The UFC has big, big issues. The way they're conducting business right now is an issue. The UFC fighters are all complaining, especially with this TKO boxing bullshit, and their fighters getting paid $15 million and above, guys. The UFC is atrocious the way they're conducting their business, especially if you talk to Ronda Rousey. She's going on a world tour right now, promoting her new fight with Gina Carano. All right, and Francis Ngannou is on that card as well. And breaking news: Nate Diaz and Mike Perry are also on that card, fighting for the true BMF title, as Netflix is selling. So the UFC has a lot of issues on their hand, man. I don't know how they're gonna fix it. I'm just hoping that UFC 327 delivers, and I'm hoping UFC 328 delivers as well, because as it stands right now, this first quarter for the UFC, failing great, guys. Failing great, guys. But stay tuned, guys. I will be giving my UFC fight predictions tomorrow night, so stay tuned for that, guys. But you already know what this is, guys. This is OE MMA TV. I'm your host, OE. Like and subscribe if you are new to the channel. It takes minimal effort to give me the thumbs up, so you already know. You might as well do it. Thank you for supporting independent MMA media, guys. And like I always say, this is your channel. The only channel where the fans come first, not last. All right, guys, I'm out of here. One love. Until next time.